Hi friends, welcome to my channel. My name is Ellie and I'm the owner of Ellie's Crafty Co. In this video, I'll be showing you step by step how to make this beautiful honeycomb swirl tumbler. This is my first YouTube tutorial, so I do thank you so much for watching and I appreciate your patience. I'll be listing everything I've used below. Okay, so let me show you how I set up my template so that I can print my own vinyl using Silhouette Studio. So here I have my template and the vinyl that I'll be using. The first thing I want to do is select everything on the template, make sure that it's grouped already, and if it's not, then just group it back together. Then we're going to resize everything together to match our tumbler dimensions. In my case, it's going to be a 9.14 by a 7.8. Now we're going to ungroup the template and delete everything except the two teal pieces that form our vinyl swirl. Then we take the triangle that was originally on the right side and position it on the left at position x0, y0. We take the second triangle and we position it at the width of the first triangle and at y0. Select both triangles, open the modify panel, and make a compound path to attach those two pieces together. It's okay if the fill disappears, but we do need a stroke. In this case, it's better if we change it to black so it's more visible, and change the stroke thickness to a 0.2. Typically, the thinner the better, but if it's too thin, this may not work. So let me explain why we're doing this. Even though we've made a compound path and attached those two triangles, technically, if we release the compound path, there's still two open triangles. And what we need is one whole closed shape in order for this to work. If we skip this next step and we try intersecting our image with our shape, our image is going to completely disappear. So what we're going to do is make sure that our shape is still a compound path and the stroke is at least a 0.2. Then under our modify panel, we're going to click detach lines, then release compound path. This is going to give us two shapes to work with. We're just going to take the one that is closest to the original shape and delete the other. Now that we've created our closed shape, we can place it over our image, go to modify and intersect, and this is how we know we have a good shape to work with now. Now I'm going to take this shape, go to our fill panel, and increase the transparency of it so that we can see through it a little bit better. And I'm going to make it purple just to help with that as well. Now I'm going to be taking the image and shrinking it down a bit so that we can work with it a little bit better. I do want there to be more of the image in that vinyl, so I'm going to be duplicating it with the replicate panel. I'll be duplicating that twice to the side and twice down. Then we select all of the images, and under our modify panel we make a compound path. At this point, we can take our shape and place it over our image. We can move it around to decide what part of the image we want for our tumbler, and we can resize our image to shrink it or blow it up, make our elements a little bit bigger or smaller, depending what you would like. When we have what we like, we're going to take our image and our shape and click intersect under our modify panel. This is going to separate all of those squared images that we put together. We just have to click make compound path to put them back together as one piece. And that's it. Now we have the piece of vinyl that we're going to be printing out. We can print it directly here from Silhouette Studio, or we can save it as a PNG file to print it from elsewhere, like Photoshop. But if you do that, you want to make sure that when you open it in another program, the sizing remains the same. To save it as a PNG, we're going to go to our page setup and change the custom width and custom height to the size of our image. Then we go to save, and under save as type, we select PNG. We title our image, and then we'll be having a pop-up screen. On that pop-up screen under dots per inch, we're going to type in 300, then click save. And that's it. Now you have a PNG file that you can open up wherever you would like to go ahead and print that on your vinyl. Since I don't own a Cameo, I'm going to be cutting my template from Cricut Design Studio with my Cricut machine. Since I've made this template, I've actually updated it, and if you purchased it from my website directly, you should have received an update email with the new link for it. Okay, so just like we did on Silhouette Studio, we want to make sure to resize our template to the dimensions of our tumbler. We want to make sure that our aspect ratio is unlocked before we change it so that it doesn't change proportionally and it actually gives you the dimensions that you need. Then on our layers panel, we're going to select the template and click ungroup. That's going to allow us to work with all of these little pieces individually. So it's made up of 4 parts: the template itself, the 2 triangles that form our swirl for cutting vinyl, and the drips that would be placed over the vinyl. And just like we did in Silhouette Studio, we're going to take our right triangle, place it at x0, y0. Then we're going to take our other triangle and place it at the width of that right triangle for our x position and at y0. Then we're going to just go ahead and attach both of those so that we can make it into that swirl that would cut pattern vinyl. So if you've purchased vinyl that's already been printed and you didn't set it up yourself, this is the piece that you would be using for cutting that. In my case, I won't be using this since I've already set up my vinyl in Silhouette Studio. So I'm just going to go ahead and hide this. So like I mentioned before, I've modified this template so that we can take these strips and put them on separately so we don't have to be cutting them cutting them manually, and we don't have to be maneuvering around the vinyl to fit it, exactly on the vinyl. So I've cut this piece separately to fit over that vinyl. You can cut it on a separate sheet of double-sided adhesive, or like if you have some scraps, but in this case I'm just going to use this same sheet to cut it out. So I'll be rotating that piece so that we can fit it on one of those corners. Then I'm going to duplicate the drips a few times, center them together, and attach them. So this is going to make my machine pass through that same drip area so that it cuts all the way through. And if it doesn't cut all the way through, it'll still cut deep enough to where you can pass an X-Acto knife through it, but not have to almost do it manually altogether. So in this case, I just duplicated it 7 times to have a total of 8 drips. If you're doing this in Silhouette Studio, you just have to change the color of the stroke of the drips and have your machine cut with the deeper setting. Then I'm just going to position that in the template on the piece where I want it to cut through. So I'm also going to take advantage of these other empty spaces, and I'm going to cut a matching pen out of there and a little circle template that's going to go on the bottom of the tumbler. So I have my circle and I have the cut through border for that circle, which passes again 8 times in a circle around the little template, and we're going to be putting those together, centering them and attaching them just like we did with the drips. Then I have my pen template and my cut through border for the pen template as well. But in this case, we're going to take that cut through border, we're going to duplicate it so that we can do another border around our entire template so we don't have to cut our template manually either. Finally, we're going to position everything together as we wanted to cut it, and we're going to attach it so that it cuts exactly as is shown on the canvas. And now we're ready to cut it. I position my template on my mat about 1 or 2 inches down following those guides, just because my sheets are a little bit smaller and I like to have more control of where my machine will cut. And now let's put it all together. So here you're going to see me taking off the double-sided adhesive from my mat. You can see how those cut-through borders helped my machine cut all the way through that bottom part, the drips, and the pen template. The only part that didn't cut through was the centerpiece swirl with the template in it, but we're going to be cutting that manually. We're now going to move on to applying our printed vinyl to the tumbler. I just cut along the edge of that printed vinyl. Then I took a Sharpie and I drew a straight line across the bottom of the tumbler, but unfortunately that part didn't record. And then I used that straight line to align the edge of my printed vinyl so that that swirl would go on straight. I cut out a small slit from the backing corner of the vinyl so that I can anchor it to the cup once I had it in position, and I can slowly roll the rest of that vinyl onto the tumbler. I just took some alcohol and a paper towel to wipe off the remaining line of the Sharpie that was still visible. So now that the vinyl's in place, I'm going to take that double-sided adhesive sheet with the template in the center, and I'm going to cut along the lines as straight as I possibly can so that I can push that sheet against the vinyl and place it down on the tumbler. And just like I did with the vinyl, I'm going to turn that piece over and I'm going to slice a little corner from the backing so that it's easier to anchor to the tumbler. So if you measured your tumbler correctly, your vinyl and your template should be going in flush and be almost perfectly aligned to each other. Here I'm just aligning that corner to that vinyl and I'm taking off that little slit that I cut from the back of the template so that I can anchor it to the tumbler and make it easier to keep the template in place and roll it onto the rest of the tumbler. And again, if you measured properly, putting these strips on should also be very flush from one end of the template to the other. So here I'm removing the backing on one of the sides of the strips and I'm going to put that against the template and over the vinyl, and I'm just going to attach it to anchor it and kind of roll it all the way around until I have a good position. I'm leaving that backing hanging on the side so that once I do have that position that I want, I can come back and pull that out and just push it down the rest of the drips. So this was basically the nice part about making that update on this template, that since these little drips are cut separately, you can put them over the vinyl and flush them against the templates, and you're not having to cut the vinyl with those drips too and then kind of just trying to put them together like a puzzle. This, I feel, makes it a lot easier. And now that everything is in place, we get to make this really pretty. I'm going to be weeding out all of the outline and the drips that we applied on separately over the vinyl. And I'm going to go in with foils and with flakes to make this really pretty. And it gives it almost as if it's like a vinyl pinstripe look, but it's a lot easier to do than the actual pinstripes. I started off by doing this with the silicone brush, but that went kind of slow, so then I just ended up going in with the glove hand, not my bare hand, just because they kind of tend to get everywhere and they stick really bad to your hands. Then I moved on to doing the bottom of the tumbler, which is a little circle double-sided adhesive sheet template with some little honeycombs on it. I removed part of the backing and dropped it on the tumbler bottom so that it could kind of position itself in that little circular groove. And then I just pushed everything down and weeded out the outline of the honeycombs to put some more foils and flakes on there. Then I brushed on some tacket on the bottom edge of the tumbler and the top rim so that I can use those same foils and flakes to give the tumbler a more finished and more uniform look. Finally, I moved on to glittering, but unfortunately, I didn't record any of that since my phone died and I didn't notice it. And after the glittering, I just went in with some clear matte spray paint to seal the glitter and the vinyl and the foils and flakes. And finally, I just finished it off with 3 coats of epoxy. So the benefit of doing this template this way with the outlines already on the double-sided adhesive sheet is that you basically just epoxy and you don't have to worry about finishing off the look with any kind of vinyl pinstripes. It's basically done as you're doing the template itself. And that's it for this tutorial, friends. Thank you all so much for watching. Thank you for your support. I hope that you all enjoyed this and you found it helpful. If you do have any questions, please leave them in the comments for me. And please consider subscribing. I'll try putting out tutorials like this as often as I can. Thank you. Bye.